Your voice.
Your station. Let's walk the talk.
702 Summer.
All right, let's get into that conversation. Our first guest is Mzwanele Manyi, who's a Jacob Zuma Foundation spokesperson. And just for a bit of background, we saw former President Jacob Zuma coming out a few months ago saying, that's about a month ago actually, saying that he wants the chairperson of the TRC Commission of Inquiry to recuse herself. The chairperson is Justice Sisi Khampepe. She was appointed by President Cyril Ramaphosa. She's leading as the chairperson in a panel of 3, but it seems the former presidents, both Jacob Zuma and former President Thabo Mbeki, want her to recuse herself. And here to tell us more about it is Mzwanele Manyi, the spokesperson for the Jacob Zuma Foundation. Mzwanele, good morning and thank you for your time.
Hi there, Kgomotso. Good morning to you and good morning to your listeners.
I want to get into why the former president doesn't want Justice Sisi Khampepe to be the chair in these proceedings. I've read your papers, and from what I'm getting, you're basically saying that Justice Sisi Khampepe sent the president to prison before, and so you don't trust her with this process?
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity to clarify matters. Firstly, there are quite a few issues on the table here. I won't get too much into the conflict issues as raised by the Mbeki Foundation. I think they are valid and all of that, but they can talk more to that. But that on its own is enough, as it were. So that's the first thing. But importantly, in fact, the foundation is shocked that Judge Khampepe could be getting such an assignment. This is a person who's got blood in her hands. 350 people died on July 21 because of the judgment that she made. The judgment that most people thought it was a very unfair judgment, a judgment that was a travesty of justice, where an individual didn't kill anybody, was sentenced to 15 months in prison without a trial, without an opportunity to mitigate sentence, without a right to appeal. Not even the worst criminals get that. Not even in apartheid you got that. But with Khampepe, we got that. So this is the kind of person that you are now entrusting with this process. It's on its own a travesty of justice, just on that line alone. Going deeper to this, we are now having a person who is making her own homework. Remember that Judge Khampepe was appointed in the TRC around 1996. So this non-prosecution could be attributed to the fact that she was part of the team that failed to ensure that these cases are brought to book.
Okay.
And today she's here sitting. No, let me finish.
Yeah.
She's here sitting as a judge. Not only that, at some point, 1998, she was also as part of the NPA, which also failed to prosecute these people. Today she's sitting here and they want to say to act holier than thou.
Okay, so initially, let's just deal with the last claim that you make there, because my understanding, Mzwanele, is that the final volume of the TRC Commission's report was handed to former President Thabo Mbeki in 2003, and that's when the further investigation and the prosecution was meant to begin. But also, the terms of reference of this Commission of Inquiry, Mzwanele, are not to investigate the work of the TRC. They are to investigate the failures in prosecution, which Justice Sisi Khampepe would not necessarily have been directly involved in. Do you agree?
No, I disagree. You must remember that there are all kinds of escalation mechanisms if you are serious about something. If you say you are convinced that there's a case to be answered, and some court or somebody says no, then you must have escalation mechanism. There's no evidence of any escalation that ever happened on either side when she was at the NPA and when she was at the TRC. So it was almost like a tick boxing exercise that they've done. And today she's here to make her own homework. This is a serious, it's a serious governance issue.
But one may argue, Mzwanele, that at the point where she may have inserted herself at that time, that's when she may be. For example, you see with Ismail Mnisi, the current chief evidence leader, the argument that's been made there is that he was actively part of the review process of the NPA Act. Therefore, he may not be fit to be the chief evidence leader. Justice Kgomotso wasn't actively involved in the prosecution of these cases, but I want to pass from there because I want us to get into the heart of this recusal application. The first claim that you made, Mzwanele, which I don't think is fair to Justice Kgomotso, is the fact that she's got blood on her hands, because at the point that she made that order, at no point did she say that people must go out there and run around and do what they did during that unrest.
I mean, now, let's not argue like primary school here. I mean, if you are going to take petrol and fire, and then you argue that I didn't tell petrol and fire to burn the building. I mean, really, if you are going to have a situation where you come and make a judgment that is seen by millions of people to be an unfair judgment, what do you think you're doing?
It's not
What
judgment.
do you think you're doing?
It shouldn't be a judgment. I hear what you're saying. What I'm saying to you here is that the justice... Give me a sec, Mzwanele. Give me a sec. The justice had the obligation to exercise the law. And are you saying she ought to have prioritized the fact that the supporters of former President Jacob Zuma would have done what they did, or the country would have gone out in the way that it did over exercising the law? She's a judge. Her job is to exercise the law. And that's what she did.
Which part of the law says somebody can go to jail without trial? Which part of the law says you have no right of appeal? Which part of the law says you cannot mitigate your sentence? Just tell me, which part of the law does that? Have you read Section 35 of the Constitution of this country and seen the rights of President Zuma that were trampled upon by Justice Kgomotso? You must go to the judgment. Just see even the wording of that thing. When the issue was raised, the issue of appeal and everything else, she said herself in a judgment that as she was making the case there, she said, no, that is a waste of time because Zuma is going to do this. She made all kinds of preemptive strikes to say, no, if we do this, he's going to do this, and therefore, no point in doing that. Why didn't she allow President Zuma to do that which the law allows him to do? She closed the door on the President Zuma's face on this because of this hate, because of this passion to hate, this vengeance which we don't know where it comes from, that President Zuma was subjected to. This is what we have. This is why the poor people who are watching this thing on TV actually reacted the way they did. She's actually responsible for the mess that happened in 2021. Her and the 6 other judges that did this. So only 2 judges that said something that is sober in that ruling. Justice Jafta and Theron. Those are the only ones. And it's only not only those 2. A lot of academics wrote about this to show the travesty of justice that was done in there. But bottom line is that more than 250 people died. So for us as a foundation, we put the blood of those people on Kgomotso and those people that did this. This was totally unnecessary. And in fact, this is the whole collection of them, starting with Judge Zondo, to start to meet. These are the kinds of people that ensure that the justice in this country is looked at with disdain. Judge Zondo became a judge in his own case. Can you imagine, during the commission days, which is where they started, Judge Zondo had his own affidavit to say that he does not know President Zuma. He put an affidavit on the left-hand side. On the other side, he put Zuma's affidavit to say, President Zuma says, you have an issue with me with what the personal issues that goes back days and all of that. You put the affidavit side by side, and then he made a ruling that his made a ruling that his affidavit wins the day. This is the kind of justice was subjected to. And only when he was doing the JSC interviews, he made that admission that he failed to make at the commission that indeed they've got some history of President Zuma that came out in the JSC interviews.
I want to ask you.
So this just shows that we've got people here in this country that are in the justice system that keep meddling things up.
I want to ask you, because in your papers, you make the argument to the effect that Justice Kgomotso cannot, President Jacob Zuma cannot appear in this commission before Justice Kgomotso because of that history. But in this instance, unless the former President Jacob Zuma is an accused here, or you consider him to be accused of something here, that should not be the case. He's not appearing as an accused in any criminal matter. He's appearing in a case where he's supposed to be clarifying for the country and assisting the commission, if anything, to get to the bottom of what happened here. Isn't that something that he should be keen to do?
Kgomotso, when you deal with matters like this, where people's lives are at stake, you want a process that is clean, a process that is untainted. You can't have somebody there with hands dripping blood and so on, sitting there and say this person must sit in judgment of people's lives. This is unheard of. Can't have a situation like that. Judge Kgomotso and 350 people here, and those 6 judges must answer for those 350 people that died. They must answer for the businesses of people that got destroyed by the kind of judgment that they have made, which violated the Constitution, which violated human rights, which sparked a kind of uproar that it has sparked. This cannot be swept under the carpet. A person like that can never at any day qualify to sit in judgment of the lives of people. People died in TRC. People that must handle this process are people that must walk on water, not people that have got these kinds of issues. She's got a case, as think very soon we will hear that in the GSC she's being reported also for a conduct that is unbecoming of a judge, where it is alleged that even the evidence leader that she is insisting that must be part of this thing is she assisted the evidence leader to say this in order to win the case of recusal and all of these kinds of things. So you can't have a person like this surrounded by this cloud of dark cloud sitting there in judgment of what happened to people's lives. The issue of what happened in apartheid is very serious. So there are not there's many people in this country that can tick the box, but Justice Kgomotso is not one of them.
So we don't have a lot of time, Mzwanele. I do want us to wrap up. But the proclamation, or I should say the establishment of the Commission of Inquiry, came in May. And you have informed the Commission of your decision to apply for her recusal in November. At what point did you have this revelation and epiphany that Justice Kgomotso is not good enough?
The Phala judgment, I think we're probably going on here, I don't know how much, that the Phala judgment is still not out. The things that have got to do with the judiciary in this country, they never take time. They always take time for whatever reason. So
but when did you realize? When did you realize that she's not good enough? Because if at the beginning of this, particularly in May, when you realized that she's going to be chairing these proceedings, if I were you sound like you feel very strongly about this, I would have immediately gone to the president. But at the point that it's November, the commission was supposed to finish its work in December. Only now you come?
No, you must remember there are all kinds of processes that people do behind the scenes to make sure that it doesn't have to come to this. So all other things were done to try and make sure that we don't get to this. This is the last straw that the foundation is now doing and President Zuma are doing right now. It's a final straw when all other things behind the scenes have been done to say, let's not do this because we don't want to gamble with people's lives. But when people don't want to listen, then it has to come to this.
Does former President Jacob Zuma want to appear before this Commission of Inquiry?
President Zuma generally always wants to do these kinds of things. He actually appeared at the Zondo Commission 3 times up until the Zondo himself did not want to recuse himself for something that he initially denied and admitted in the JSC. So President Zuma is always willing. President Zuma is in court every day. The issue of President Zuma wanting South Africa to know the truth is always at the heart of President Zuma. The clear answer, President Zuma definitely wants to go there, definitely wants to say his side of the story. He was the president part of that era. He has a lot to tell the people of South Africa, and that cannot be stopped because somebody is insisting on someone with a blood in their hands to be the person that hears him. President Zuma is definitely not going to appear before Judge Kgomotso. If there's another 15-month sentence coming, so be it. But what is not going to happen is that President Zuma is not going to appear before Judge Kgomotso again, not before a person that violated the constitutional rights of President Zuma. It's not going to happen again.
If he's so keen to appear, Mzwanele, and this is my last question to you, why was he among those who have delayed in making their submissions to the Commission? The Commission had made a call that submissions should be made. Documentation, written submissions. Former President Jacob Zuma is among those who have delayed in making submissions to the Commission. If he's so keen to make his side of the story heard, why is he delaying?
No, you must remember, President Zuma is an institution. Whatever President Zuma's information would have been is sitting in the government archives. You must ask President Ramaphosa. There's absolutely nothing sitting in Ngandla. Everything is sitting in the union buildings and up in the various shelves there that the President Ramaphosa looks at every day. So all the information, President Zuma was not there in his state. He was there as the head of the state. So everything that President Zuma would have done as the head of the state sits in Mr. Ramaphosa's office today. So as to why did Mr. Ramaphosa not make that information available, you must ask him, because it's not like President Zuma is sitting with his thing at Nkandla. It's at the union buildings, right in front of Mr. Ramaphosa. Why have you not asked him as to why didn't he release information? Because it's not personal property of President Zuma. It's a government property. It's presidential files. Why didn't they make those available at the time?
All right, Mzwanele Manyi, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you coming onto the show to clarify this.
Welcome. Thank you very much.
All right, that's the spokesperson of the Jacob Zuma Foundation. You know, there's so much in this story, but my biggest issue is a commission is established in May, and it's agreed that the work is going to start, that the hearings must start ASAP, and it takes months from the parties that are involved, the parties that we all want to hear from, because we all want to hear from former President Jacob Zuma on why during his terms in office, he did not push for the prosecution of these cases. There are strong allegations that have been made around these TRC cases. And in November, now he comes and he says, listen, I don't want Justice Kgomotso. Justice Kgomotso has been leading this since the beginning. At what point did you realize? And I'm not sure that Mzwanele Manyi was able to answer that clearly. You know, I'm not sure he was able, because it seems at some point there's been an epiphany. If you ask me, it sounds like there are delay tactics here. There are people who just don't want to come and account. And this Commission of Inquiry is not a criminal hearing. It's not a criminal process. It is a process where all the parties must come and assist the Commission and assist the families in finding closure. What we need from him, and I don't think that he's been answering the questions that we need from him. I mean, I don't think he can say that Justice Kgomotso has blood on her hands. What was she supposed to do? She was supposed to prioritize the fact that people would run amok, that they would run around and break shops and you know, I mean, how was she supposed to know that that was supposed to happen? And even if she did know, and that panel did know, they should not be prioritizing that over the law. Their work is to make sure that they apply the law. Of course, Manyi doesn't agree with that, and it's an ongoing thing, you know, for the MK party. They insist that the former President Jacob Zuma was dealt with unfairly, and it hurts me that this means that families are not going to get justice because these men that are powerful just keep doing this, pulling these cards at the last minute.